Okay, my name is Anthony Primola. Okay, at that time they used to call me Coochie. That was my neighborhood name, but my real name is Anthony.
So, before you started in the group, your father was a pretty famous musician, right?
Yeah, my father was a drummer he played in New York. He played with variety bands all over the city, and he was a musician, a very good drummer. Okay, and I used to carry his drums to all the jobs and everything.
And he played with some pretty famous musicians as well.
Yeah, he was the drummer with Xavier Cugat for quite a while, for about a year, and he traveled all over with him. Him at that time they had a singer named Abby Lane, who was Cugat's like big show in front and everything. So at that time I used to go to a lot of the jobs with him, and I felt pretty good because he was playing with Cugat. He was on television and everything, on the Steve Allen show and everything. So he was very good, and I felt very sad that he passed away so suddenly at 43 years old. I was about 18 years old. And I would have loved to have known more about him. But at that time, I was doing Doo-Wop stuff myself,
So he's the guy that really got you into music, would you say?
Yeah, my father, he kind of got me into it because he got me into a musical environment, okay? And I was very young, and I used to love it because I was going into the Manhattan Center, into the Waldorf Astoria, all these people, all these different nightclubs, and seeing, playing he was backing up a lot of famous people. So I felt maybe this is what I want to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. When you were doing that stuff with your dad, do you remember meeting any famous people?
I met Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. They were in the Manhattan Center. They were performing, and they were famous on the Steve Allen show. All right. So this is yeah. So those are about the only people that I met.
So that was around the early 50s?
Yeah, the mid-50s. Around the mid-50s. I was about between 14 and 16 years old, you see. Okay.
And so before you start your group, did you ever think you wanted to do kind of jazz, what your dad did, or did you always kind of feel you wanted to be in that group?
Well, it was more like a rock and roll thing. Because I went to George Washington High School. 3 of the teenagers went to George Washington High School. And when Frankie Lyman made, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, I said, we have to start singing, At that time, I was just hanging around, free spirit. And everybody, we have to start singing. So it turns out that we started doing doo-wop in the hallways and on street corners, you see. You want to sing with it. We would recruit anybody. You didn't have to be a singer, all right? Just come on, let's hang out and sing, So that's what we did. And that's how we kind of got started with the group.
Yeah. So you mentioned the teenagers, right? Were you friends with any of the teenagers?
Yeah, I was very good friends with Herman Santiago. Herman Santiago and I played baseball together in Highbridge Park. And I remember him very well because he was a left-handed batter. And all this, so anyway, when I heard that Herman was with the teenagers, I said, he's a friend of mine, And he's a friend of Johnny. Johnny was another friend of mine. So we called Herman and said, hey, what's going on with the teenagers? He used to want to come to one of the rehearsals. And they used to rehearse in the junior high school called Stitt. And Stitt Junior High School was around maybe 162nd Street, around there, So we would go to the rehearsals. And because we knew Herman Santiago, Frankie Lyman said, yeah, let him come in, So we would see them rehearsing and all that and practicing. So it gave us more of an incentive to say, we got to start singing for real, you know what I mean? So that's how we went back to the street corners, and everything led to anything. That's how it started, okay?
How was that experience, seeing Frankie Lyman and the teenagers rehearse? Was that...
Oh, yeah, it was, wow, first of all, I said, we're lucky we're here, because they were learning like new songs, and they weren't like maybe published yet, you know what I mean? So everything was like a big secret. So we wouldn't tell anybody, what they were doing, but we knew they were rehearsing and everything for new school, new songs and all that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and we kept it a secret,
So would you say that your biggest inspiration to start a group was because of Frankie Lyman?
Yeah. And it was close by. Like, no, it was like Frankie Lyman wasn't in New Jersey. He was right here at home in Washington Heights, you see. And that's how, not only us, but there were other kids that were influenced by that whole scene. The Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. You know, that was it.
So you start this group by mixing in and out. How did you finally settle on the four guys?
How did I find? Okay, Johnny Alicia, we started, okay, there was a kid named Freddie Brenner. Freddie Brenner had a magnificent voice. His father was a Creek Indian and his mother was black, okay? Now, he was very rare. He used to go around singing in the neighborhood, like in the hallways, not in the hallways, in the alleys, like between the buildings, and people would throw money. So he said to me, Coochie, you want to help me out, man? We're going to go and maybe you could pick up the money while I sing. So I said, yeah. So people would throw money in these little bags, you know, wrapped up, and Freddie would sing, and you could hear his voice throughout the alley, like the walls trembling, beautiful voice. And people always said this should do something with his voice. He was very young, but he had a beautiful voice. So Johnny, me, and Freddie got together. He said, Freddie, you're going to sing lead, okay? And we picked up any song, just any song. And he was singing. He said, okay, we have to get another guy, all right? So everybody else wanted, because we were like practicing, and the harmony started to sound real good. People would come like, can I sing with you? So then finally some guy named Gene came over, and Gene says, I sang with the Platters. I said, you sang with the Platters? Anyway, we got rid of him because he was just a big phony. This other kid named Ed Williams comes over. Ed Williams was a black fella. He was dressed very nice, very nice. He worked in the bank. He always had a white shirt and a tie on. So I said, where do you work, man? Do you really sing? He says, yeah, try me out. So Eddie came in and he was perfect. First tenor, Johnny second tenor, me baritone, kind of bass, you know, and Freddie would sing the lead, okay? So that's how we got started. And we were singing other people's songs, you see. And it sounded real good, you know. So that's how it got started.
So when you started singing baritone and bass,
yeah.
who would you say was your inspiration for that?
Okay, there was a kid named Sherman Grimes who sang for the Teenagers bass. He was a real bass. And the whole thing was a doo-wop, oh, doody-bop-a-ga. And so I'm trying to say, how can I can't get down there that low, you know. So I kind of faked it, you know what I mean? And it said, Coochie, that's okay. That's all right, you know. So anyway, we started to hang out, and we started, the harmony got to be real tight, really good. So now, what are we going to do? You see? So that's the point at that time.
And by this time, do you guys have a name, or do you have like a name before the Unknowns?
We were thinking of the name, and we said, well, we weren't that serious yet about, you know, making a record or anything like that. But we said, we hadn't thought of it because we were just singing. And we weren't like a group that we're going to go perform or record, because that came later on. So at that time, we didn't make up a name, but it came after that.
So this was around 1956, 57?
Yeah, I would say very much between 55 and 56, around there, okay? And then if I can go on, I'll tell you what happened. We were going downtown, down by Times Square, so-and-so building. It's a building called the Brill Building, Brill. You see, this is, you know, I heard about this place, you know, let's go in there. So we went in there, and started going up the elevator, started walking up the stairs, and then getting around. There's a room there with a piano, and this black guy's playing the piano. Black guy's name is Ben Smith. He's playing the piano. So he said, hey, listen, we're a group, you know, and we want, he says, sing something. So we sang something, you know, and he said, sounds pretty good, you know. Would you guys like to make a record or something? I said, whoa, wow, a record, man, you know. So we went back, and that was the first time we met Ben. Very nice guy. Anyway, so we go back to the neighborhood. Let's make him started writing the ideas, a song, a melody. So Johnny Alessay and I had this very bright kid. He's starting to say, how about like one more chance, you know? One more chance, one more chance. And he was very good with poetry. And I kind of picked up on the music, the melody, and he got writing down the words. So we said, Freddie, see if you can sing this. And hey, it sounds pretty good, all right? So then eventually we made another song called You and Me, all right? We picked that up. Anyway, so time goes by. We go back down to the Bill building, and we said to Ben, listen, we got 2 songs. Let us know what you think of it. We sang it, and he started correcting our harmony, you know, because he was a very good musician. He was correcting, you know, sing this, take some notes down. And he says, okay, so it turns out that we got to think of a name, you know, wow. So somebody said the unknowns. I don't know if it was me or Johnny or Freddie or I don't know, the unknowns. Wow. And we could wear masks. You know, what a big deal that's going to be, you know. The Lone Ranger, we're going to wear masks, you know. Nobody's going to know who we are, just certain people. It's a big secret. So that would be like a thing to you know, to motivation and all that stuff, to sell ourselves, you know what I mean? Because the groups that we saw, nobody had masks on, and they all had a name. Nobody had the unknowns. So that's how it started. So then Ben Smith says, listen, okay, I want to put you guys in the studio, recording studio. And I'm not sure if it was NOLA recording studio. It was a recording studio in town. And there was a group of guys, 3 guys, they were a rhythm section, bass, piano, and drums, okay? And they were going to back us up. So they said, let's hear this song. And they picked it up right away. These guys were good studio musicians, boom. And Ben Smith, I didn't know this, Ben Smith played baritone saxophone like you would not believe. Rhythm and blues, beautiful. Most of the solos on all those records were by a tenor saxophone, like Sam the Man Taylor, you know, a few other guys. But Ben Smith played a baritone, and he played the hell out of it. So anyway, we go there. So let's have a take. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's record it. We recorded it once, and it was one recording was fantastic. And Ben was on. I said, I didn't know you could play the baritone. Oh man, so it was fantastic. And what are you going to make a hit anyway? That's how it started, and that's how we got our name, The Unknowns. And that's how the whole thing kind of got started.
So when you walked into that studio for the first time, how was that experience?
Well, yeah, going into the recording studio with all the, you know, the gadgets and everything and headphones, and you had a speaker coming down here and a speaker down for Freddie, you know, we was to get close to the speaker now, not the speaker, the microphone. Get close to the microphone. We were on a little step there, and Freddie was over there, we were over here. And the drum section, bass, piano, and drum, they were on the side. And I said, man, this is real stuff, because I was young. You know, 16-year-old kid, 17, whatever. And I was saying, man, this is fantastic, you know. When we heard it, we're going to play it back to you. We played that big thing on a big speaker. We played it back. I said, oh, my God, fantastic, you know. And it was a thrill. It was a thrill. Yeah. The thrill of a lifetime for all of us, okay.
I couldn't even imagine being so young.
Oh, young, yeah. And Freddie was a kid. He was a super on 176th Street. You know, the supers would come down and they would take all at that time, they were shoving coal into things, you know. And I used to help him up with the coal that was already burnt. We'd already help him up to put it up in the street because the garbage man would eventually collect it. So we were always hanging out together, you know, and Freddie was great. And he was what is called a very innocent kid. And anyway, it turns out that it was a high for me, for Johnny, for Freddie and Eddie. We were like, oh, wow. You know, so we'll get the masks and everything. And that started. Then after that, Ben said, you have to have pictures. Now, I don't remember what studio we made the pictures, but we made 11 different positions. We would stop on a thing, you know, like this. You stand over there, we're getting over there, Freddie over there, and all these positions. And we had like outfits. We had nice shirts with like a sash, you know, and they weren't in color. It was like black and white, you know. But wow, look at the pictures. Wow, man, we're going to be famous, you know, like the Teenagers. So that's how it all started.
Do you remember where you got your uniforms?
Yeah, like in any store that had a lot of stuff, different color stuff. It was like a loud color material, like a silk, and the color was like, from what I remember, it was like a green, and then part of it was black here, and then we had a sash that came around like this. I wish I had a picture. I think I would show. That's the thing. So, but it was a professional studio where they put pictures of entertainers, you see. So we were saying this is overwhelming. This is overwhelming. And that's how we got into it. And then we were walking in the neighborhood. People, well, there go the unknowns, because they knew us, you know what I mean? And guys in GW, a couple of guys that on the Downbeats, they said, man, they heard of this. That record sounds great, man. It's going to be a hit. So that's how I'm thinking to now 1957. For some reason, people put down 1958, but it was recorded in 1957.
So you mentioned the Downbeats, and they also went to George Washington.
Yeah, they went to the same high school I did, GW. Now, I didn't know any of them by name, but I knew them by, he would come over and, he'd say, hey, man, guy in the Downbeats says our record is good, So George Washington High School was the high school to go to in Washington Heights. Everybody was there,
So going back to your uniform, do you remember where you got your masks from?
Oh gosh, no! Wow, wow. Yeah, we got 4 masks, and they were black. They were black, and
They were the
the Lone Ranger. That's the mask. That's it. The other guys were black. Johnny was Puerto Rican. I'm Italian. Eddie was black. But you knew we had masks on. You knew we had masks. And we were like, laughing, like that.
So after you make the record, do you guys start doing shows? Or,
we used to perform in high schools, like a lot of different high schools in Long Island, in the Bronx, and we always wore masks, of course, and people would say, take off your masks. No, don't, we'd like run out, like big studio, run, there they're gone, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that was more of a high. We would say, oh man, this is fantastic. Don't go back in there, but don't take off your mask. So nobody, of course, people in our neighborhood, knew, like I lived in 178th Street. Everybody in 178th knew me, and they knew Johnny. They knew everybody, So anyway, it turns out that we followed we still followed the Teenagers. Just to see what they make next after Why Do Fools Fall in Love. I think they made it. I forget the name of this song. But okay. We used to follow all the groups, the Heartbeats, the Harper-Tones, the Valentines, and I believe that the Valentines were the ones that discovered Frankie Lyman, okay? And anyway, so it goes from there. We used to go to all the rock and roll shows.
Yeah, did you, you mentioned high schools, but did you ever make it to, like, the Apollo or...
No, we would have loved it. The closest, what happened was, for some reason, we got depressed because the record wasn't going anywhere, and it was because the record wasn't going anywhere. Ben Smith was very honest. He says, Alan Freed wants too much money to push the record. And that's a famous thing that they called payola. They would get this money and then we're going to pay. So Alan Freed wanted too much money, and he says, we can't afford to give him the money. So Alan Freed played the record once in a while, and then he wouldn't. And then a guy named Jocko was very, very, very good. We walked into Jocko's radio station, and he was very open, very nice. Come on in. So he said over the radio, he says, I got 4 guys in my studio now with masks on. And we had a record. We wanted to give him one of our records, you see. And they gave me this record, and he played it right in front of us. And I was like, this is very nice, very nice. So anyway, it turns out that we met Jocko in his studio, and he was very impressed with our masks, you see. And he said, hey, man, that's something, So anyway, that's how that turned out. But over time, we got kind of depressed. But because it wasn't going the way we would have liked it to. And then we went to this place called Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And he had like a show where he'd get different people, young kids. So we went there, we performed for him, and he says, great, all right. But it took a long time for him to get back to us. By the time he got back to us, Eddie was somewhere else. And he said, we have a day for you to perform. But we said, we can't make any commitment because we don't know what the hell some of the guys are. One guy especially, Ed. And so anyway, I said, the hell with it, don't bother. We let it go. But we would have performed and we got an okay to perform on his show. But we never really did it, never materialized. Our whole thing was about maybe 2 years. About 2 years.
So the big thing you guys did was just pretty much high school shows then, right?
Yeah, I can't say it again.
You primarily did high school shows then?
What do you mean?
Instead of the Brooklyn Paramount, the Apollo.
Yeah, okay. The Brooklyn Paramount, we never got into any of these shows. All right. Another big inspiration for me, but we took it as there was Frankie Lyman had a brother named Louis Lyman. And Louis Lyman, and I think it was the Teen Chords, you know. And one of the guys was a very good friend of ours. His name was Rocco. And Rocco sang with the Teen Chords. He was very good friends with Johnny and me. So we used to go, hey, look at this Rocco on it. He's in the Brooklyn Paramount. How the hell? Why can't we be there? You know what I mean? So we got kind of frustrated because we knew we were better than that. We had a dance routine, and I was a trumpet player. And between the break, I would play my trumpet. You see, and I didn't play saxophone, but I would play the trumpet, and then we go back to the dance routine. We had a whole good thing going. Okay, it was good.
So, do you remember kind of how your dance routine looked like?
My dad?
Dance routine.
Okay. With dance routine, I don't know if I can do it for you now. I don't know but we did have a dance routine, and we would end it like me and Johnny, while Freddie was about to sing again, we would do a split. You know what a split is? You know, and at that time I could do it. You see, and we would make sure that everything was slippery too. Cause boom, you know, and Freddie would start singing again. You see, so we had a dance routine. Yeah, it was very simple, you know. You know, and then we would go front and the back, you know. So we practiced in front of mirrors and everything, you see. So we did have a dance routine, yes, yeah. So
I guess getting back to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
A big thing in New York was the Battle of the Groups. Did you guys ever battle? No. We didn't have. I don't remember the Battle of the Groups. Was that a thing on television? It was just kind of like guys on the street corner where you guys would kind of sing back to each other.
Yeah. No. We never got into something like that. Not in Washington Heights. No. There was a lot of pride also. You know that. But in reference to a Battle of the Groups, I don't remember that. No.
So, do you remember what other groups came from your neighborhood?
The name of the groups?
Other groups.
Well, the other ones I know is the Teenagers, the Downbeats. Those are the only ones, the two that I knew from the area, okay? And there were other, the very groups. At that time, I thought New York was the capital of the world. I thought Washington Heights was everything there is to know about anything, you know. And when they had Dick Clark and Philadelphia and those shows on TV, I said, that is not that cool, because this is the being cool. In Washington Heights, this is where the cool is, you see, not down there in Philadelphia. So we always thought that was kind of square, you know. But so that's it, you know.
So you guys wrote those two songs, right?
Yeah. Okay, we were on the verge. Ben wanted us to record another song. Ben Smith was in collaboration with a guy named Al Sears. Al Sears played tenor saxophone, and he had a publishing company called Sylvia. He named it Sylvia because his daughter's name was Sylvia. So it turns out that Ben Smith and Al Sears wanted us to make another recording. At that time, Harry Belafonte was very popular. We were supposed to make a song called Coconut Water. I can sing it for you now if you want me to.
I'd love to.
Coconut water, buy it for a quarter. Mother, father, daughter, they drink the coconut water. Coconut water, buy it for a quarter. Mother, father, daughter, they drink the coconut water. But we never did it because we were all mad at each other, you know, and all that. From what I know, Freddie Brunner went on to they changed his name to Freddie Washington, and he made a recording with a nice thing, but I don't remember the recording or anything. So it was, you can see we're starting to pull away from each other, you see. And we were saying, gee, Ben, that sounds like a great song. So I started, Johnny, what do you want to do? And so we can't get another lead singer now. I don't want, we can't just do it by ourselves. So we kind of had the hell with it. We didn't do it. Years later, I was playing trumpet with the band, and I met Ben Smith playing with the blues band in 125th Street in Harlem. And I said, so Ben says to me, hey, what happened to you guys? I said, well, we broke up. And so anyway, I said to him, how you doing, Ben? He was playing with a real good band. And so that was the last thing, It's too bad we didn't follow up on anything, you know what I mean? And I was starting to get a little older. My focus was more on like playing trumpet and going to Juilliard School of Music, because I auditioned and I got in. And I lived right in New York. So I said, what the hell? I don't have to travel. I can live at home, and that's it. So also at that time, Governor Jim Nelson Rockefeller was saying anybody that lives in New York, in Manhattan, and is going to a college, let's say, I'm going to give you a bonus scholarship. So he gave us, and I was going almost free, you see. So I took advantage of that, and my head was focused on that. And Johnny was more focused on baseball. He went on to later he became the Mets announcer for baseball in the Spanish television, whatever. So Johnny was very talented, and his voice, because it comes out on the second tenor, and he comes out very good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after those 2 years, you guys kind of broke up because of
Yeah, right. Because it was kind of depressed, We saw people that we knew we could be better, you know what I mean? But maybe they had the funding. I don't know, At that time also, Alan Free got busted for this payola thing. And I think he went down. He did go down, like, boom. So what the hell happened? He made a lot of money on the shows. He didn't pay those guys that much either, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm looking back at it now, and I was saying it was a fantastic time for us, you see. Yeah. And at that time also, in New York City, in Washington Heights, there were a lot of gangs. And in order to get away from that gang environment, we were singing. And that did help us. The singing was very beneficial for us in many ways, you see what I'm saying? And it was a time, I think President Eisenhower was the president. There was no war going on. Everybody was happy, and it was a beautiful thing. And that was it. And when I look back now, compared to the times now, I mean, that was heaven.
Yeah. So,
this is before the Beatles now, and before any of that stuff,
So, you guys are, you guys were performing, with those masks and with the uniforms, the dance stuff.
Yeah.
What happened to those photos that you guys took?
I have no idea. I hate to say it was lost. My mother had a bunch of pictures. You know what I mean? And she didn't like the idea that I was singing with black guys, and so she threw them away. And I was saying, Mom, and I never thought that you would be coming around, or anybody, to say, hey, listen, you want to do something in reference to that era, you see. But the 50s, and I thought, like I said before, I think that I thought New York was the mecca and the biggest thing of rock and roll at that time growing up. And we knew all the different songs of the Valentines, the Heartbeats, Crazy for You, 1,000 Miles Away. That was like, man, wow, you know what I mean? And that was it. The Heartbeats never sang. They used to sit on the microphone. I'm sorry, they never danced. So everybody, the Valentines, the Cadillac, they would always have a step. The Heartbeats would just sit in the microphone and just sing. 1,000 miles away. Oh man, that's beautiful. So it was a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you, since you guys were on the Extra record label, did you guys know any of those other artists? Or
okay, no? we got on the Extra label. I think it was published by, I forget. There's always like how do you say the rights, the ASCAP, a BMI. We didn't get into that much because we didn't know much about it, but I think it was. We had the rights to it. You see, especially us, we young kids, we wrote the songs, and somebody else is recording them. What the hell? What are you doing? You know what I mean?
Did you know any other acts, like any other vocal groups on the label?
Yeah, there were, after us, there was maybe one or two or three groups on the Extra label, you see. When I got this record, I said, Margie, that's not our label. Our label was black with a silver writing that said X-TRA, Extra. That's how it was. And then, you know, so, and I said, we had 45s and 78s. And Ben gave us tons of these records. We were giving them out to everybody in the neighborhood. And I heard two guys 15 years ago call me from Las Vegas. They said, are you so-and-so? I said, yeah. He says, do you have any of your records? What's going on? He said, well, we're record collectors, and one of your records is worth $600. I said, I don't have any, you know what I mean? And then they somehow they got a hold of the song because they were singing the song back to me. And I said, yeah, that's one more chance. He says, well, if you can get us a copy. I said, I don't have any copies, man. I don't have any pictures or nothing. So that was the latest thing that happened to me, before you anyway.
So, you go to Juilliard now.
Yeah.
And did you kind of lose contact with most of the guys in the group, or?
Yeah, the only guy that I kept in touch with, because Eddie Williams, I saw him in 1971, and he wasn't doing that good, whatever. So I said, Eddie, it's good to see you. And I never saw him again after that. I saw him in the store. I said, what the heck are you doing here? So anyway, I never saw him again. Freddie, from what I know, died at a young age. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. But Freddie had a beautiful voice. Anyway, so Johnny and I stayed in touch. We hung out. He bought a car. I bought a car. He got married, had a baby. And I got married, but we used to hang out, Johnny. And Johnny went on to become the broadcaster for the New York Mets, like I said before. So we always stayed in touch. And now he would say, you going to Juilliard? I said, yeah, I'm meeting all these people, Leonard Bernstein, all these people. Wow, I'm in a different environment. That's when I started to meet people from, my friend Charlie came from Illinois. My friend Tony came from California. My whole thing in life was broadened because I met kids from all over the United States, you see, and they were trumpet players. I said, oh, wow, man. So, and there was what I was saying, the unknowns isn't everything. Now, say this is it now. I'm going out there. So that's how. But I stayed in touch with Johnny, and this is a picture of me and Johnny. This is like we were about 20 years old here, about 20 years old. Yeah. And he went on to become, like I said, the Mets, and that's me. And he was one of the unknowns, And we would say, remember, he would say to each other, hey, remember how we used to sing in the streets and we made recordings and all that stuff? And we would sing that song, Coconut Water, because you remember, So anyway, that's that. Yeah, that's all right, yeah.
Did you, So you played trumpet most of your life, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I played. I worked a lot. I worked with Sammy Davis, Jose Ferrer, Xavier Cugat, Bobby Rydell from Philadelphia, Trini Lopez from California, Shirley Bassey, Goldfinger Girl, the McGuire sisters, the Castro sisters. I could go on a few other people that I was playing backing up these singers, you see. And I worked a lot up in the Borscht section in New York, what they call the Jewish Mountains, where all the entertainers would go up there. I worked a lot with show bands, and I also worked with a couple of jazz groups. Nobody famous, like sitting in, you know what I'm saying. And I worked with like a brass quartets, that kind of thing. I performed a lot, and the thing with the trumpet is it's a very demanding instrument, and you have to keep in shape, you see. So. One of my good friends from Juilliard went on to play first trumpet with the Boston Symphony. He was with the Boston for 25 years. So upon his retirement, I went over to visit him and everything. He said, you still playing? I said, yeah, I play. What I still do now, I play taps a lot. Because when I was in the Army, during Vietnam, these guys were coming back in body bags. And they would say, Tony, you got to go here, got to go there, play taps. Nowadays they don't have. Nowadays they have like a plastic instrument, and the guy's got a thing, and he puts it up to his lips. He's not playing. You see. So every Veterans Day, Memorial Day, I play taps with all the flags around here. I've gone, I play taps. That's one of the things I do. I also play in churches, stuff like that. I don't ask for any money. I do it because I enjoy it, you see. So that's, yeah.
I guess that's your life, the trumpet. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, my music has kept me alive. Not, I shouldn't say alive, but it's kept my spirits. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like a therapy kind of a thing, you know. And music breaks all barriers, you know what I'm saying?
So I guess backtracking real quick, did you heard your record on the radio a couple of times?
Yeah. My father at times would drive me up to GW, the school. I went to George Washington High School in a pickup truck. So Alan Freed happens to be on. So we're going to school. All of a sudden, this is Alan Freed says, the unknowns, you know, and you and... Dad, that's you. I said, yeah. He says, man, he said, oh, that's the. So there was another guy in the truck with us. He says, that's my son, you know. And I said, yeah, wow. So he heard us, you know. And I said, gee, that's great. At that time, I was still, you know, wow, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, he heard me. He heard me that one time, and I heard it a few times, but not that as many times like I used to hear the Teenagers or the Valentines all the time. You see what I'm saying? So at that time, like I said, I'm going back to the same thing with they wanted a lot of money, the payola thing. And it's a shame that happened because there was, not only us, there were other groups that weren't getting what they deserved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you think you could tell me a little bit about each of the guys, like what their personalities were like? Or do you remember?
Oh, Johnny was beautiful. Freddie was kind of a wild kid in the neighborhood. He was wild, you know what I'm saying? He was always getting, not into trouble, but he was like, Freddie loved me, you see, and I loved him, all right? We used to box in Highbridge, okay? We used to box, not professionally, we used to box for the Department of Parks. At that time, they would send us to box in the Bronx, in Long Island, you know? So we were in this boxing clique, you see? So, and sometimes we would fight in the neighborhood. Hey, come on, Freddie, yeah, let's show me that kind of thing. He was kind of wild, right? And you couldn't fool with him because Freddie would beat the hell out of you, all right? And if anybody bothered me, Freddie was right there. He didn't like it, okay? So Johnny was my buddy. We used to hang out all the time. And what are we doing? You know, you go, when you're young, and the thing in New York is, what are you doing? We're just hanging out on 76th Street and Audubon Avenue. Okay. What are you doing, man? I don't know, man. What do you want to do? You know, let's have a couple of beers. You know, let's still go up to the roof or something. All right. So anyway, stuff like that. We're very friendly with it, and we're friends with other guys. And other guys came to us because they said we did something special. We read a record. You know what I'm saying? We were the unknowns and that kind of thing. Eddie was very serious. Eddie worked in the bank. He always come to the rehearsals with a tie and a white shirt. I said, man, yeah, I just came from work, you know. But he had a beautiful tenor, high to, yeah, like that kind of thing. So we got along very, very well, very, very well. But we just kind of got depressed after when nothing happened, you know. I said, we didn't want to go to Ted Mac, the hell with it, you know. You know, and that's how it was.
Well, it's cool that, you know, you kept music in your life the whole time, you know, with the group and then going on.
Oh yeah, we lived music. We ate music. You know what I'm saying? And that was it. That was put it this way, that was a dream come true for young kids at that age. And let me see. When I was like 19 and 20, like I said, I was already accepted into a school, and Johnny was working. Johnny used to work for the Johnny used to work for the, I forget, he worked in New Jersey. He worked for the state of New Jersey. He had a job then, before he went with the Mets. So we were like getting into other things. And Ed, like I said, he worked in the bank. And Freddie was still hanging around. He trying to make something for himself. Like I said, somebody named him Freddie Washington. And he did make a record. And I don't know what label or what, I don't know.
That's cool. And what was I gonna ask next? So I guess is there any, like, from those high school shows you used to do? Is there any particular memories that you loved from that?
What do you mean from the songs or
From
something?
the high school shows you used to do, like.
From the high school?
Yeah, is there one show you did that stands out?
What do you mean by the memories from high school?
No, I mean the shows you used to do for high school.
Oh, the high school. Oh, yeah, that was like, wow. You know, don't take off, because the girls wanted us to take off our masks. Get out there, no. And that was that was big. You know, we'll come back another time. We used to sing it there. We used to sing in the center. Also, there's different schools in this neighborhood had wanted to take the kids off the street. So they would have like a center night where they would have entertainment sometimes, you know, and we would sing at things like that at the centers. You know, it wasn't any money, but we would get, and they would do a routine with the steps and everything. It was something us to do that was, you know, we're getting a high from this. This is terrific, you know what I'm saying? So that in high schools and also at the centers, and like I said, at times I would play my trumpet for the break and everything. And to me, I thought that was the best thing that's happening in the world. You know, this is great.
Do you remember any other groups you used to sing with?
We never sang with any other groups. No, it was always just us. Yeah.
Cool. Is there any other particular memories about the Unknowns that I forgot to ask? Or
Yeah. It was a wonderful thing, as I recall. It was great then, but I think it's even better now that I think about it. You see, I went out to have 7 kids, and we've got like something like 9 or 10 grandkids, and we're always busy. But when I think about that, I say, wow, you know what I mean? That was good. And even when you called me, I said, this is a joke. This for, you know what I'm saying? I said, but the fact that you're into this, it's a very important thing. It's a very important thing because it's a beautiful time in our country anyway. And it was the beginning of a whole thing of rock and roll. You know what I mean? Of course, it went into Europe and it came back. But if we didn't have it here, it would have never gone to Europe. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And as far as I think anyway, they're just copying everything that we did here. They're just copying it, like, you know, what's the guy? Not the Beatles, the other guy, the Rolling Stones and all these other groups. This has happened here first. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they came back, and because because the American people think they're all white guys too. But this is where it started. Not over there. And they just copy it. I mean, I'm not criticizing them. They do very well, you see. But our thing started here. Rock and roll started right here, not over there.
Yeah, in the streets of New York.
Yeah. And that's how I feel. And if I ever talk to anybody, I'll say the same thing. You know, this is rock and roll here, right here. And it started, I mean, Elvis Presley, we used to go in the Brill building, there was pictures of this guy Elvis, country singer. Hey, that's weird. Elvis Presley, what a name. He went out to become he became God, you know what I mean? But we knew him, we knew of him rather, before he became very famous, you see. And so as I look back at that time, and I say it was a beautiful time, and especially in my youth, you know, and Johnny and I stayed friends. He just passed away 2 years ago, and I went to New York they had a big memorial and all that, and I know his son Johnny Jr., and he was saying, wow, I said, Johnny, look for a picture of us, you know, look for anything, right? He said, I'm looking, and he can't find anything. But, yeah, I think of the group as a wonderful experience for me, and I'll never, it's part of my life.
Yeah. What, do you remember how the bass part goes in the songs you did?
Where? How about it?
Yeah, like, could you sing part of the Unknown songs?
What?
The bass part.
The basketball?
The bass.
The bass?
Bass of the song that you sang.
Yeah, okay.
The Unknowns. The bass.
All right, wait, let me think. Yeah. Oh, now that you've left me, you've broken my heart. Just tell me one more chance, like that. And the other one is you and me. Okay, the other. Let me try this again. the guy would be la 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 la, and I go doobie doobie doo, wow, doobie doobie doo, wow, yes, I really love you so. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't the bass player. I said, dude, hey, that sounds fine. Ben said, that sounds fine, man. Okay, let's record it now, you know. But that's, I was doing do 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 do, you know. And I knew music. I knew a little bit about chord structures and how the chords develop and how the chords move on. So I would go right into it, you see. And I look at it now and I'm saying, gee, well, that sounds weird, you know. But I did it, you know. And that's how it was, yeah.
Cool. Is there anything you want to say to the people who are gonna see this?
It was a beautiful time in Washington Heights. All right, it was a beautiful time, and growing up in that era. Okay, and there's nothing else. As far as I'm concerned, it was the best of times. It was the best of times. It was the greatest of times. Okay, and that's it.
Well, thank you so much.
Huh? Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah.